How desperate are you for a maple bar that you have to break into a business?
I've been there.
I am Tony Matar, and this is Pastors in Cars Getting Donuts.
We're getting donuts?
We're getting donuts.
Let's go.
So on today's episode of Venture Out, we are going to go get some donuts. And the beauty is you have 3 youth pastors in this car. We've all served in youth ministry at some capacity or at some point in our lives. You know what they always say? Once a youth pastor,
Always a youth pastor.
You could be 50 years old or 49 wearing a Knights jersey and you could still be a youth pastor.
32, thank you very much.
Oh,
49.
Wasn't referring to you.
49, but I am by far the most immature person here.
That's okay.
I think my wife might argue that.
So we're driving in a 2015 Audi Q5.
Yes. Let's tell you a little bit about
it-
this car.
Total girl car.
Total girl car. Actually, I should pull up the specs.
Fully loaded with Husky's umbrella.
You could tell who this car belongs to.
Say,
There's a
First aid kit.
first aid kit.
Barb must have given you that.
it's a big enough car for a large man to be able to sit in the back.
True.
Yeah, this is
that a fat
definitely...
joke?
Youth pastors are funny. It doesn't matter how old they get. They always still wish they were relevant. Most of us peaked in high school, I'd say. Or we want to relive high school somehow.
I guarantee you I didn't peak in high school.
When did you peak? When was the peak of Morgan Butcher?
I don't know, my widow's peak hit at about 15 though.
I think Morgan's still waiting for that peak.
I think my best years are ahead.
I agree. I really do.
I think that once you were a youth pastor, like if you were one of those guys, like there's 2 different types of youth pastors. There's the youth pastor that was only a youth pastor because he was waiting to get older to be a senior pastor. And then there was, I mean, it's true, like they didn't fit, they really struggled with it, they didn't relate to teenagers.
Yeah.
They related more to people in their 40s and 50s. And then there were those of us that like loved youth ministry and were obsessed with youth ministry, and we left youth ministry because God drug us away kicking and screaming, and you know, we had 3 children and couldn't afford what a youth pastor makes. But I think this, once you're a youth pastor that loved youth ministry, no matter how you pastor, pastor like a youth pastor.
Now, do you still
agree
find
with that.
yourself preaching certain ways or doing certain things that you did as a youth pastor? Here we are 15 years later as a lead pastor now. Do you still do some stuff?
I think like the relational dynamic of our church, like that, you know, at Venture, this isn't a church you sneak in and sneak out. Like we want people to like know and each other and goof around together and go on trips together and game nights together, and that's all from my youth days. Like because youth ministry is all about relationship. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys felt this, but in my first 3 years of youth ministry, I put on almost 25 pounds because you're so busy.
Wow.
You're eating all the time with people. There's Little Caesars at every event.
Let me tell you what that is, brother. That is Applebee's.
Applebee's. Everyone wants to go to Applebee's.
Half price wings.
Everyone wants
So
to
you want to
go.
know what it was for me at Bethany?
What would you do?
So I didn't realize this was bad for you at first. So I would go to Broadway Joe's Espresso, and I would order a 32-ounce mocha.
Oh, that's a lot of mocha.
I didn't, you know, that was like back in this is like the early 90s, so you didn't know you're supposed to get non-fat and sugar-free chocolate. So I would get this gargantuan mocha
There were no
every single day. I remember one time, it just like, it was the heat from the coffee and the cold from the milk. It literally caused the plastic container to explode.
Oh my gosh.
In one of my youth leader's cars when he drove me to.
It wasn't even your car.
But apparently that didn't help.
See,
me
for
stay
us,
fit.
it was Slurpees. You know,
Every Wednesday.
we'd pound those Slurpees, 40 ounces.
Morgan and I, it was a pre-Wednesday ritual. 40-ounce Slurpee, a hot dog,
Oh yeah, gotta have the spicy big bite.
and a beef stick.
The
Super
ladies,
big gulp,
Yep.
Mountain Dew.
Oh, wow.
the ladies at 7-Eleven at that Evmont campus, they literally, when we walked in, they would say, "Ah, Slurpee man." You remember that, Tony?
Morgan was referred to as the Slurpee Man.
Well, it's because
Of
for
the Evergreen
what was
Way
it? My birthday, like all the
7-Eleven.
youth kids and leaders got me 7-Eleven cards.
How much did we get you? Like
I literally had
$200?
like $200 in 7-Eleven gift cards.
Okay, let's talk most embarrassing youth ministry moment.
Oh.
It's funny because whenever I look back at myself as a youth pastor, especially when I was at Everett, by the time I was in Modesto, I was a little bit seasoned and mature. But when I was at Bethany, I did so many things that I look back and I'm like beyond embarrassed. I'm like utterly
Yeah.
ashamed of.
What'd you do?
What'd you do?
I'll tell a story about one of my youth pastors that worked underneath me.
Oh.
When I was a youth pastor, I had assistant youth pastors. So at Calvary, our church services have 3,000 people.
Wow.
We're broadcast on TV. Like in Northern California, if you worked at Calvary or the house in Modesto, you were like not a D-list celebrity. You might have been a G-list celebrity, but like people knew you everywhere, right? Because we were on TV. And so being
Kind of
on
like
the
we are right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Whoa. But what was amazing is if you got an opportunity to actually be on the platform, because I mean, you got to be on
wow.
TV. So my associate youth pastor, Tyrone Renta,
Oh.
Oh, T-Bone.
Tyrone got up on stage, was doing announcements. Pastor Berto went up and was interviewing him. Unbeknownst to him, he did not zip his fly,
Oh no.
and
classic.
he literally flashed
Oh.
God
Oh.
and the entire world on TV.
Oh my.
Yes.
I don't think we
So
can put that
the
in the
most
video.
embarrassing moment in youth ministry, I was embarrassed for my friend, who forever for this day is known as that guy.
Were you sitting in the front row?
So you know what I do from now on?
Yeah.
Every time I preach, I have a nervous tick.
Oh yeah.
I have to make sure my zipper's zipped.
Oh my god.
Every time, watch me. I will do it 4 or 5 times before I walk on the platform. I'll do it while I'm up there because I refuse to be Tyrone.
Oh my gosh. You can never bounce back from the world seeing something so intimate about your life like that.
Yeah.
How do you bounce back?
Pretty much, I think if that happens, you are delegated to junior high guy forever.
Ouch. You can only survive there for so long, you know?
Junior high guy, if the church offers to pay for your counseling, it's worth it. If not,
There's no
Move
one
on.
more brutal than junior high.
junior high ministry is.
If you can make it in junior high ministry, you might be a saint.
Why do junior high kids smell so bad?
You know, it's the concept of deodorant they haven't gotten yet.
Or it's that they've gotten it too much. Right?
And then they get really bitter if you ask them to put it on.
They're super fun and they're
Yeah.
like
Love it.
Oh, I love junior high
incredibly
ministry.
like junior high kids give you gifts. Like high school
Yes.
kids write you notes, but junior high kids get you gifts.
Your high school
They-
kids wrote you notes?
They just smell.
Your
Your
high
high school kids, write little sweet notes all the time. That's why Kaylee
No.
Murphy is like forever my favorite youth kid
Yeah,
ever.
but
She
she's
like
the
writes
best.
sweet notes constantly.
I just got a cupcake from Haley Wallace 2 weeks ago with a note on it.
I want a cupcake from Haley
And-
Wallace
and-
with a note.
Once again, she's in 7th grade, so that makes sense.
The issue with
great.
junior hires is much like John Mulaney once said. Like, they will say the thing about you that you dislike about yourself the most. You know, like, they will find the one thing about you that you don't like about
They will
yourself.
draw your largest insecurity.
And they won't say it as, like, an insult. They'll just say it,
Matter
like,
of
as
fact,
a statement.
like everybody knows. Yeah, it's like if you were sitting there wondering, okay, man, should I really shave my unibrow? Should I? Or does anybody even really notice?
Oh, they know.
A junior high kid will tell you. They'll
They'll
say,
tell you.
They know everything.
"Hey, your unibrow. Is that
Coming in
like
strong.
something? Is that a style or what?"
Not to be offensive, literally just a question.
Or if you're a little bit overweight, a junior high kid will poke your belly.
They think you're the Pillsbury Doughboy. Yep.
Woo.
Morgan, what's your most embarrassing moment?
Oh,
I know you have many, but
I mean, any number of times I've had to dress up in a costume and dance in front of the church. I don't know.
oh,
I don't know. I don't know if I have like one really embarrassing moment. That
What was
stands
the
out.
worst costume that I ever made you dress up in?
The Blue Man Group.
What?
The Blue
you
Man
like
Group
how he just answered that
was
immediately?
okay. The
We're
problem
planning on
was
doing that next week.
we bought a face paint for us that I had to put See, you had a bald
Oh,
cap.
the Blue Man Group.
You had a bald cap.
I thought you said the Blues Brothers. the Blue Man
No,
Group.
no, the Blue Man Group
Oh.
for Trunk or Treat.
Do you remember that I ended up having to go on a trip at the last second
Of
to
course you
Hawaii?
did.
Of course.
Of
yeah.
course, yeah. God called you.
How
Oh,
timely.
yeah.
It was me, Tyrone Renta, so this is the second most embarrassing thing Tyrone Renta's ever had happen to him in ministry.
Tyrone,
And
if you're
then-
watching, man, we love you.
And then
I'm sorry, dude.
Christian. And I literally spent 2 hours in the shower trying to scrub blue paint out of my ears, out of my nostrils. I don't know how those guys do it every night in Vegas.
We're about to arrive at Top Pot Donuts.
Here we go.
Let's go.
I like Top Pots because they support University of Washington football.
How desperate are you for a maple bar that you have to break into a business?
I've been there.
So we're at this. Like, what is your preferred donut?
You know, I'm not really a donut guy.
You told us to come to a donut
I'm
place.
Not, you know, I'm not really a donut guy. I enjoy, if you're watching this, a veggie loaf. You ever had a veggie loaf?
Stop it.
Okay, I'm gonna order a donut that I believe is totally like Tony's personality for him.
A maple
So,
bar.
I'm
Big.
ordering him a plain old-fashioned donut.
Oh my god.
Glazed or unglazed?
No, give me at least a maple bar. I can't do just. And are you paying?
You just
You
asked
get
for
coffee?
a veggie loaf.
I don't even think I brought my wallet. I didn't.
Oh man.
Don't worry, guys. I got this one.
All right, Morgan's paying.
Wow. Backseat guy.
Morgan, what's your donut of choice?
All of them. I like the big ones.
Apple
So I'll get up there and I'll say,
Bismarck.
What's your biggest
All right.
donut?
I need one plain old-fashioned donut and
No.
the biggest thing you have.
I don't want to eat an old fashioned. They're so
Can I get a
boring.
big one?
Tony, what's your most embarrassing moment?
I've had a lot.
You haven't been in it for very long.
I have. I mean, I've been serving for
Yeah,
a
you've
minute,
been serving
but I
for a
have.
while, yeah.
But I haven't like. Yeah.
As like a youth pastor, though, you.
Oh, as a youth pastor, I think I've had more moments where I've wanted to punch a wall than maybe I was embarrassed.
Wow, this is getting real.
This is getting real.
Some vulnerable moments.
I one time
here.
had a student. Drawn on the insecurity thing. I was year 2 into my marriage. Like I said, I'd put on all this weight, and I had one of my junior high boys who I loved dearly. Loved.
Elijah Veals?
No.
No.
He came up to me and grabbed my belly fat and just started doing this.
Oh, look at junior high kid. Oh.
He played it like an accordion.
And then I started
A
wearing...
junior high kid or Steve Gustafson. They're the only ones I know that would do that.
Oh my gosh. I started
man.
wearing oversized shirts for about a year after that because I was so... I didn't want anyone to see what was going on under that shirt.
I would have just worn
I was
a
mortified.
There is nothing
A
that would
series of
cause
belts
somebody to
across my belly.
intermittently fast more
I was
than that.
mortified.
All right, do you guys want to hear the worst thing I ever did as a youth pastor?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So remember, times were different in the 90s. So
Just get away with anything.
Di and I were dating, and we became the youth pastors at this Lutheran Brethren church when we were 20. And our youth ministry explodes. So we have kids from all over, and they're kids that got saved. Believe it or not, we had a write-up in the National Lutheran Brethren magazine because we had the largest Lutheran Brethren youth ministry in America, 80 students. Now, we didn't have a clue what we were doing. So
Blew
I
it up.
had... Okay, I got to tell the story afterward.
Oh, can you give me a Bavarian cream filled, please?
Can you sing though?
gross. Hi, Bavarian cream filled. Do
Please.
you have like lemon? Oh, can I get the lemon glazed old fashioned?
Get the Valley Girl lemon. It's called Valley Girl.
Unfortunately, it looks like all we have left for the lemon is the Valley Girl lemon.
What is the Valley Girl lemon?
So that's gonna be the lemon, like stuff.
I'll get a Valley Girl lemon.
Yes. Yes.
He is from the Valley, so it makes sense.
There you go.
Do you have a big donut?
Our biggest is probably like our glazed raised ring. It's about like this big.
Sounds amazing.
Perfect.
Can we get a cup of coffee? Just
Size.
12-ounce drip, please.
Hey, what are you charging up
Morgan's
my
paying.
card for?
What was that?
Any cream or sugar in there?
A hint of cream would be nice. Thank you.
What's the pink feather boa?
So that is just our regular spice cake donut, and then it's got the pink frosting on top and coconut.
Do you have those?
Yeah.
I need a pink feather boa too.
Yeah, he does.
Gotta have it.
You guys, if we don't get donuts for our wives, are they gonna get upset?
My wife would get upset if I brought her a donut.
How about you add an apple fritter to that too? Nicole
We
loves
definitely
the
don't need
apple
to go to
fritters.
another donut, but we have plenty of content.
Our wives would. My wife would get upset if I brought her a donut.
That better make the episode. I love my wife. I think she is an amazing woman, an extraordinary woman. The best part about living with Di is that you constantly feel guilty.
Oh my gosh.
You mentioned that.
You
mentioned that before. What does that feel like?
It's the weirdest thing because, like, she doesn't do anything wrong and has such extraordinary discipline that you just are. You admire this person. And you know how weird it is to admire your wife?
Now, was she like that, like in her 20s and 30s when you like first met her and stuff?
No, when I first started dating Di, we broke up 3 times because she wasn't spiritual enough.
She wasn't spiritual enough, or you weren't spiritual?
Oh man,
man.
I was like radically in love with Jesus. I was like the kid that would get on the street corner and preach and offend everybody
Wow.
for the cause of
Oh,
Christ.
the turntables have
And
turned.
Di
The
has.
turntables
Di
have
was the
turned.
little rebellious girl.
So Michael
She
Scott.
was a terrible influence on me when we were younger.
She was a terrible.
The
Oh, your total
turntables
is
have
going to
turned.
be $14.20.
14.20.
Sorry, man. Thanks, Morgan. I know. There's.
My wife's gonna kill me.
I know finances are tight, but
$14 for 4
we're
donuts.
so grateful, brother. And a coffee.
Yeah,
Well,
guys-
this one looks amazing.
we're
The
banking
powdered
on
sugar
mortgage
one?
forgiveness.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
God bless. Can't
No,
wait to
worst
hear
thing I've
it.
ever
Oh,
done.
worst thing.
Okay, so
that
remember,
big.
I'm really young, and I've only been saved for 3 years. I have no business leading anything, right? But
Yeah.
this church was so desperate, and because we had success, next thing you know, here we are. So I was working at a bank, and I was wearing a suit. Had gotten off work, went straight to the youth service, and I was kind of in a bad mood. It was a really rough day, and there was this one junior high kid. So I was
Oh.
a junior high kid, and he just always wants to mess with you all the time. And his name was Albert Hurlbert, and all Albert Hurlbert wanted
That
to
is
do.
not a real person.
Yes,
That's kidding me.
worst name ever. His parents hated him from the moment he was born. So he would always come behind me and try to wrestle with me. And I was just like, dude, Albert, I'm serious. If you don't knock this off.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, I'm 20. I'm still in pretty good shape. I had just, I was a state wrestler.
Yeah.
And so I still thought I was really tough. And so Albert kept messing with me, and I finally had enough, zipped behind him, picked him up, and suplexed him on his head. For the rest of the service, we went on, and Albert kept rolling around in the side of the room, acting like he was hurt. And I was just like, dude, man up. You're going to mess with me? You mess with the bull, you get the horns. And,
How did you not get fired for this?
well, then it gets worse.
This is making me feel a
gets
lot
At
better
about,
about
at about
my
1 in the morning, Albert, who was living with his grandma, got taken to the hospital because he was uncontrollably vomiting and had a severe concussion. So the next day when I found out that I had literally hospitalized poor little Albert Hurlbert, I thought,
Hurlbert.
I should probably say I'm sorry. So I called his grandma, and this is what his grandma said, I know that Albert, he probably had it coming. That was it. So I was off the hook. About 15 years later, I ran into Albert at a movie theater. And Albert is like, remember that time you dropped me on my head? And I was like, unfortunately.
Did he forgive you?
Yeah, we were cool. That was back then. I mean, you did stuff like
I
that.
wish I was a youth pastor in the 90s.
Oh,
I got someone about a year ago, a junior high student, stopped me in the middle of my sermon because I said the word crap. Stood up and called me out in front of all these people and said, you can't say that word.
Can't, bro.
That wasn't the only word I was thinking.
Can't
well,
say it.
you got to remember that when I was a teenager, and probably the first 8 years I was a youth pastor, teenagers had no rights.
Ugh.
Like, you were basically, like, growing up, I mean, Morgan, you're still young, but like, you guys grew up in the generation where people cared about what you thought. But when I was a teenager, adults didn't care what I thought. And so that was kind of it. So you just dealt with that. But there was this weird transition when my youth ministry transitioned from being full of Gen Xers to millennials. Millennial kids, they we cared about what they thought. And
Man, I wish you were my youth pastor. That would have been fun. I probably would have been like Albert Hurl. What's his name?
Hurlbert?
Albert Hurlbert.
Youth probably would have suplexed me on day one.
You made the Hurlburt hurl.
You think he went around at school that day? Hurlburt, the hurler.
Hurlburt sounds like one of those last names like O'Doyle. Like,
O'Doyle rules. What movie is
Hurlburt
that?
rules.
Yeah. There's so many things when I look
Really
back
nice.
at those early days, and I just.
But you know
I'm so
what?
embarrassed. It's a miracle I'm still a pastor.
All joking aside, I think we can all agree being a youth pastor is probably one of the most important jobs in the world. You are loving a young person at such a critical time in their life. Like, this is kind of, sometimes it's make it or break it. If they find Jesus in high school, middle school, man, they'll follow Jesus for the rest of their life. It is probably one of the most important jobs in the world.
Beals nearly broke Hurlburt's neck, so that is make it or break it right there.
It really is.
So, the funnest thing I've ever done to this day was when I youth pastored in Modesto. I worked there for 4 years. I don't feel like I worked ever. It was, I don't know, the greatest job in the church is the youth pastor. The only bummer is that you can't provide for your family with it once your family gets past a certain size.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I loved being a youth pastor.
Are you saying when I hit baby 2, I should like move on to like maybe legacy ministry or like, because the parking lot and youth ministry is great, but
I think
Keep
you can
going.
usually make it
Keep
to
going, bro.
baby 3 is when it gets really tough.
So this wasn't at our. This was when I was still. This was when I was just learning how to be a youth pastor at my old church. There was this little girl. Her name was Catherine. She was probably about 4'9", like the smallest little child, but so sassy, just the sass master.
like
And
Stephanie McCausland.
I had a pretty good arm, and we used to play catch with football out in the front of the parking lot every day. And Catherine kept on walking right in between our game of catch. So I said, Catherine, you got to stop doing that. This ball's going to hit you in the head, and your little body's going to snap in two. And we're whipping it back and forth to each other, and I throw this ball, and honest to goodness, I will go to the grave, was not intentional. But I have never hit a person with a football harder in the head in my entire life. Catherine walks right in between us. I throw a laser beam, and it hits this girl right in the side of the head, and she drops like a bag of potatoes.
Oh my god.
And you know, she's like out cold, like literally knocked unconscious. And so her mom comes. Thankfully, she snaps out of it. And she came the next week to youth group with a full-on neck brace on. And then 2 weeks later, an insurance.
Is her dad's name Albert?
We might all be in the same family. Then 2 weeks later, this insurance guy calls me and asks me questions about what happened, and I was so nervous that I was literally like gonna go to jail, or they were gonna take all my money. I had no money. I was so scared.
Listen to what I did to my boss's son. So I got my first real youth ministry job right out of Bible college. First full-time job. I'm working at Bethany Christian Assembly in Everett.
Yeah.
My boss is Rollin Carlson. So Rollin, you're probably watching this. It was one of the elder statesmen for the Assemblies of God in the Northwest Ministry Network. He ended up being the secretary-treasurer. So he's like this iconic AG powerhouse minister, right? Very intimidating guy. You know, he's got like one of those deep guttural voices and things. So my very first youth retreat, his son Steve was a senior.
Oh man.
And we were playing flag football. Remember, I'm 22. I've now been saved for about 5 years. 2 years after sending Albert Hurlburt to the hospital. And we're playing flag football. And the youth leaders, as they always do, because youth leaders play smart, are always dominating the students.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with athletic ability. It's because students don't play smart. So the students were getting really, really, really mad, in particular Steve. And so whenever I would catch the ball, Steve would tackle me instead of pull the flag. And I was getting a little bit mad. So then the last time he tackled me, I grabbed the football, threw it as hard as I could, and did a full-on Catherine. Morgan to Catherine, and I pelted Steve square in his nose.
Poor
Did you
Catherine.
break it?
I don't know if I broke it or anything. I felt super guilty and thought, well, I've been a pastor at this church for a month, and I'm just hit the senior pastor with a kid with a football in the face.
Brush up that resume.
So one of my youth leaders then walks up to me. His name's Jeremy Sanino, and he says, Brandon, that wasn't a very youth pastorly thing to do. So I spent the rest of the trip apologizing. Immediately when I get home, I apologized to his dad, thinking I was going to get fired. But
Yeah.
thanks to the 90s, early 80s, this is what his dad said. His dad chuckled and said, "That's Steve. He probably had it coming."
Man.
That was it.
I got to tell you guys, the stuff that you guys pulled, especially you, Pastor Brandon, about 6-7 years ago, we did a junior high all-nighter, which we then started changing the name to junior high overnighter. Because, we were just starting to lose brain cells by the minute. And we had decided, this was at the old Evmuck building, the guys were going to go sleep at the kids' facility upstairs, out in the building, and the girls were going to stay at the youth building. And I remember it was like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. We decided we're all going to go to bed.
I remember.
And all the guys go sleep, and all the girls are asleep, and Morgan and I are with the boys, and Ariel and Nicole are with the girls. And I get a text from Ariel at about 6 a.m. saying, "I think there's a boy here." And I'm livid. I'm frustrated. I thought, who's the little punk that stayed back just to hang out with the girls and stay the night? This is messed up.
Please don't say Judah Beals. Please
No.
don't say Judah Beals.
We walk up to the building at about 7 a.m. an hour later, and we had forgotten Aiden Westfall on a pool table.
He fell asleep on
He
a
fell
pool
asleep on a pool table
table with a blanket over him.
and slept with all the girls. To which he woke up mortified. He's around all these junior high girls. Yeah, all he has is brothers at home. This is before he had a little sister.
You guys want to hear a Lindsay Leslie story?
Oh yeah.
Please lay it on us.
Oh man.
Lindsay and Leslie got saved, I think they were 15, the day my daughter was born. So I've known them
wow.
for 23 years, been their pastor, right?
Wow.
So they were actually super good athletes in high school, believe it or not.
Wow.
Way better athletes than any of the boys in our youth ministry.
Lindsay and Leslie.
Lindsay and Leslie.
Wow.
So I was living on Casino Road. Terrible personal
gosh.
investment, by the way. But I bought a condo in Casino. It's right next to Walter E. Hall Park. And so we were playing football. And the team was 5 boys in the youth ministry versus me, Lindsay, and Leslie.
Oh my
And
god.
Lindsay and Leslie ran circles around those 5 boys. And we blew them out.
Were they firecrackers back then as they are now?
They were super amazing, honestly. I don't know. They were super fun. Both of them were always making it. They were always hanging out at mine and Di's house, and they were always really fun.
Hey, we want to thank you for watching this week's episode of Pastors in Cars Getting Donuts. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.